Episode 40, Politically Conscious, returns tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Is Trump going to send troops to Chicago after, in his eyes, successfully cleaning up the streets of D.C.? Trump says as president, he tells the governor of Illinois that he can do whatever he wants if he thinks a city is in danger. Is this an authoritarian move for a potential run at 2028, or is he really trying to clean up the streets? If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. What's up, everybody? It's your mental activist, Montoya Smith, and welcome to episode 40 of Politically Conscious. I'm actually working to get my political experts on the show with me, one stuck in traffic, and so hopefully we'll make this work with this night show. We've been doing our shows in the afternoon, but based on my schedule, we tried to pull one in the evening, so hopefully we'll be able to get everyone together. If you are familiar with the show, we'll be playing political clips from around the internet in reference to what's going on with politics currently. One of our brothers is coming up in here with me, Brother Leo Smith, one of our experts that comes on and giving astute political consciousness. This is the Politically Conscious show. So thank you, Leo, for jumping on with me at night. We normally do this in the afternoon, so thank you for making time for us. But our brother Emil, who's stuck in traffic, he said, you know what, with everything that's going on, we need to go ahead and do a show. So thank you for making short notice with us. With that said, brother, tell people your background. We may start these cuts, and hopefully Emil will get out of traffic and be with us pretty soon.
I'm Leo Smith, former strategist with the Republican National Committee and executive with the Georgia Republican Party, currently doing work in government relations and civic engagement, promoting a pro-democracy infrastructure for America, and making sure that we do policy that is uplifting and empowering in the state of Georgia. So I'm happy to be here with my brother Montoya.
Thank you for being here. I don't know if you got a chance to see episode 39, but we had a fiery conversation with our brother, Shelley Winters, in reference to the DC takeover. There's definitely different thoughts on, whether that should have been done or not. I personally felt that to a degree it's a red herring to get concerned about the takeover, because Emil himself also alluded to he thinks it's a bigger picture, or as he said, a balloon test for some things down the line. But the media and we did as well got into a conversation about the actual crime in DC. Again, I think that's a red herring to a degree. Those are viable conversations. You can agree or disagree on them. But if Emil is right, there is a bigger picture here, then we are being deceived by having an argument over the crime in DC and some of these other areas. As this show, Trump has made it known to the governor of Illinois he would like to send Chicago. So for a second. So hopefully we'll get you back. Maybe we have a little internet on me as well. So just had a quick glitch in the internet. All right, Leo, can you hear me?
I can hear you well. It's probably on my end. I'm using a different internet provider, so that probably is me, and I apologize for that to you.
No, it happened for me too, so I'm not certain that it's just for you.
Yeah.
I'm in South Carolina today, not in Georgia, so it may just been an issue with the internet. My thought with you is basically, how do you see the DC takeover as we potentially see troops potentially being sent in other cities around the country? But how do you see the DC takeover? A real thing or a red herring from your perspective?
Well, I mean, it's real because it's really happening in the same way that LA happening. And I'd imagine, because Emil is such a student of constitutional facts, that it is a constitutional fact that the federal government in DC really has the primary authority over DC. That's the whole reason why there have been so many activists who are pursuing DC statehood. DC truly is under the authority of the president if he wants it to be. And so it's not a red herring because he's doing it. And also, I think we have to look at something that Trump has made very clear as one of his strategies. He is very effective at getting Democrats to deny that the sky is blue. I'm going to do something because the sky is blue and I don't like blue skies. And so what Democrats are doing, they're going, wait a minute, the sky's not blue. And that makes them look really silly. This is why, back in 2014, I worked on the campaign of Eddie DeLoach, who is the mayor, who is one of the first white mayors in the last 20 years of Savannah. Savannah was having a serious crime problem, a lot of gang problems, a lot of shooting, a lot of disruption of tourism, etc. was one of the results. But more importantly than that, the lives of grandmothers, black mothers, brothers, sisters, kids wanting to go to school, drive-bys, all those things were happening. And there was the feeling that, well, we can't really go and attack this issue without seeming racist. So I worked on the campaign of an Eddie DeLoach, a white man. He ended up replacing a black mayor. He won the race. It was a shocker, but we ran on one issue, and that was crime, because the black families did care about crime in that city. People care about crime. So what Democrats are doing now, Trump has made it very clear that that was going to be one of his issues. He was going to be tough on crime. Our law and order president, even if you don't believe that he himself follows laws and order, that's not the point. The point is that, just because an evil person does a thing that might be for good doesn't mean that thing isn't for good. It is good when Trump or any president improves crime statistics. And not only improves it, but in the case of DC, pretty much shut murders down for a while. So that matters to families who lose lives, who lose their children. Not only that, but of course, the people that Trump's circle, he's trying to protect his own people. He's trying to protect elected officials, the elite, right? He's trying to do that. That's true. But he's also just fulfilling a campaign promise.
So yes, Shelley said on the last show that he was for extreme measures to include the National Guard, and as you said, has the authority to do so for DC specifically. So when I say red herring, I'm referencing Emil highlighting that he thinks the push in DC and the fact that he throws out moving into other cities. For example, Shelley and Emil disagree on whether he would go into other cities. Shelley thinks he doesn't have the authority, so he's, at least from my perspective, I feel like Shelley said it won't happen. And Mill's like, no, it's about to happen. And then we hear Trump loosely throw it out there toward Chicago. And so just to make sure I'm being very clear. So what Emil is saying, he thinks it's getting troops set up for the potential 2028 run of Trump. So basically getting troops situated, so that there's a lot of authoritarian moves that seem to be setting up the push to go for 2028. So that's what Emil is alluding to.
And I think Emil is right. I think that argument is a reasonable argument based on what has happened. Did Trump stand firm and hard? There's not even a lot of Republicans. Mitch McConnell would not say that Trump stood firm and hard against the riots that were January 6th. Did he try and do things to stop that because he was so concerned about keeping his own power? So if Trump's already in power in this case, and then he's got the ability to bring the National Guard to Washington, D.C., or to any place to watch the returns and to check for ballot security, would I put it past Trump? I disagree with Shelley on this. I wouldn't put it past Trump at all to use those measures if he feels like, something, if he's using the argument that the election is being stolen and is being illegally stolen. Would Trump do that? Yeah, he probably would. Is he definitely probably going to do it for DC? I mean, I fully expect him to do it for DC. The likelihood of him doing it for other cities can come in a number of ways. He can always create a reason, as he is doing in his sort of revenge campaign right now, to do almost anything. So might it be that he does it, as Emil is saying, with the complete and clear objective of stopping the election? No, he can say, I'm coming there because crime is high. He can say, I'm coming there because it's just an exercise. Right.
And if that is the case, then what I'm saying is, whether it's you or I or any other media outlet that is actually getting caught up in the weeds of whether crime is down or not, because this is also happening while DC, the mayor of DC, the mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Alabama, they are having 30-year lows on crime decreases. So you're actually bringing them in at this time. And so you can, and what I'm saying is you can have that dialogue, but if the bigger goal is what Emil is suggesting, then the crime becomes the red herring. So that's all we mean by it.
Yeah,
Let me play another cut. Let's keep this thing going.
Absolutely.
Emil joins us pretty soon. Yeah. Let's play this. This is just some things that, that these points towards Trump's behavior that aligns with what the bigger play may be, in my opinion.
But then he goes on television and says, "Oh, Trump is a dictator. He's a dictator." And a lot of people are so the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. I just know how to stop crime. So I would have much more respect for Pritzker if he'd call me up and say, "I have a problem. Can you help me fix it?" I would be so happy to do it. I don't love, not that I don't have the right to do anything I want to do. I'm the president of the United States. If I think our country's in danger, and it is in danger in these cities, I can do it. No problem going in and solving, his difficulties. But it would be nice if they'd call and they'd say, "Would you do it?" And we.
So I think it just aligns with what you've already said. I personally one-on-one challenged Shelley over a year ago, saying it is crazy. Personally said to him, "It is crazy to me that you're so dismissive of this aspect of Trump and those who would also support these efforts." Like, he can have a lot of other valid reasons as a conservative for why he's supporting certain policies and things of that nature. But I've always felt it has been a risk to disregard these type comments, because to a degree they'll highlight it as, well, he's on social media, he's on Truth, whatever
Truth Social,
he's on.
Right?
Yeah, but it's like, oh, Trump's trolling. Like, no, we keep seeing things line up to the things that you told me were trolling.
I don't understand, Montoya. I don't really understand how anyone who is paying attention to politics as a profession, is their job to pay attention to politics, didn't hear Trump say these things during his campaign. So it's one thing to say that Trump is trolling by saying some ridiculous stuff like, "I'm going to take over Greenland." Right. So I can say discounting that kind of statement makes sense, because guess what? He didn't campaign on taking over Greenland, but he did campaign on taking over blue cities. So then when he starts doing it, anybody who says they're surprised by that obviously isn't a political professional, or at least are sort of, they're putting their political professionalism on pause. Because, for any political commentator or pundit to not acknowledge that Trump is basically carrying out his campaign promises, and he promised to crack down on blue cities. He said he was going to do that. So we should not be surprised when he starts doing it. Now, if I were a blue city mayor that had crime rate that was significant, what I would do is I'd pull out my own. I'd double my own efforts. So what Wes Moore is doing, the governor of Maryland, for instance, he's coming on now and he's sharing these strategies today. Not last week, not 2 weeks ago, not last month, not when he implemented the strategies. For some reason, Democrats won't talk about, or haven't talked about, the strategies that they're using to tamp down crime in their cities. In other words, I think that Democrat mayors and governors are thinking that their base don't want to hear about crime being tamped down. They don't want to hear about it. And so therefore, they don't message ahead of time that we got this under control. They're doing it in response to Trump. Let me ask you one question real quick. My own troops.
Yeah, one question I would ask is, with the consolidation of the media, for example, I've highlighted specifically, I wish I knew their names right now, but I've been, as an independent media, I've been highlighting those efforts personally because I've been able to find them via the internet. So with prominent media being kind of under control of an authoritarianism, is it possible that it's not easy to get that message out? Now, I'm not there saying that the political pundits who have the power shouldn't be able to tap that same media and get it out much quicker. But media itself, it doesn't care to cover that these black mayors are having success. That's something that America has never really cared to cover. So I'm not challenging what you're saying, but I don't think the media, and nor do I expect the media to highlight it, but I do agree that the people that are the politicians who have a direct line to the media should be doing a much better job of messaging, and it shouldn't be coming out at this point, because I'm very aware of the statistics, but I'm always in them. So
well, you're 1%, brother. You are the 1% who is heavily and highly informed. But if Hakeem Jeffries, who should be more the speak, if he doesn't know it, and he's not sharing it when he's got the mic, and he often has the mic. If Hakeem Jeffrey knows all the lyrics to Biggie Smalls, but he can't tell you what one of his own mayors are doing in a city, that's a problem. You know, if Cory Booker can sit there and say, "Look, I talked for a long time without going to the potty," then he ought to be able to also talk about what people are doing in cities to protect its citizens.
I agree. Emil, are you? Let's see. Check your audio. Thanks for jumping on with us, brother. I know you were stuck in traffic. We can't see you, but hopefully we can hear you.
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm coming on.
Yeah, we can hear you though. If you want to go ahead and kind of jump in on your thoughts, brother.
All right. Sorry about that. Let me.
No problem. No, you're good.
Get myself together here. So yeah, there's this problem that I think Leo has articulated, but it's also bigger than that. You have black mayors in black cities doing the best they can and finding some success, but you also have a media that's complicit with the administration in that profit is king. We still haven't just said it. Everything that is happening right now has a profit motive to it. And until we are clear that that profit motive does not change, the media picture will not adjust. There is no profit motive to having a black mayor lead story that a black mayor helped get jobs for black people. A black mayor helped. They're not going to win more advertising dollars. They're not going to win market share. They're not going to win ratings, putting that as the lead. So what bleeds leads. What is sensational makes money. And you know what's the most sensational thing happening right now? Donald Trump refusing to be a constitutionally proper president. That is by far the most sensational story out there. And they will keep playing and playing this story, and they will tamp down every story that does not reach that level. So if you want to see something that works, go to Gavin Newsom and watch him sensationalize trolling Trump. That works. I'm sorry, we are not in a media environment where it's okay to be inside of the old rules. And what you're seeing is the media, the mainstream, and I don't want to call it mainstream. Let's call it corporate-owned media, owned by Disney, owned by Comcast, owned by Time Warner, or Warner Brothers Discovery. All of those corporate owners care not one whit about the Constitution, not one whit about what's right or just or true. They care about ratings and money. And what right now sells is invading cities. And they will continue to show that until we, the people, stop paying them to show us crap.
No, good stuff. Because at the end of the day, the media is supposed to serve as that watchdog role. And I basically hear both of you pointing out, and you specifically, Emil, that the watchdog role is gone due to profit, because tough on crime has always been a big seller. Just to highlight something that Shelley said on the last show, he said it's about perception of crime. And I agree with Shelley in that sense, but it is the perception of crime, perception of what you're doing versus what you're really doing. And to your point, Emil, we will continue to highlight the perception, because here's another example, and I'll kind of let you both pipe in, but it also points out how Democrats continue to fail when faced with the issue, even when they have an opportunity in the media. So let me play this cut and get y'all thoughts.
You
I'll start with you, Emil.
like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago? Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
No, I understand that. You've talked about the other things you want, and I said those are good and important programs, but I'm asking also, would 5,000 more police officers on the street in Chicago be helpful to go along with all of those social programs that a lot of cities are engaging in and having success with?
Well, look, here's the best way I can put it, Joe, is that in the 90s when I was in high school, we had 3,000 more police officers and we had 900 people being murdered every single year in Chicago. It's just not policing alone. Of course, we want more detectives.
I know it's not policing alone, but I know it's not policing alone. You've told me everything else you want. I'm curious, and this does come down to an ideological difference between people. Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying that
that's not the question I asked. My question is, and I just need a yes or a no, do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, which do have a history of being successful, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? I'm agreeing with you that all of these other social programs are extraordinarily important. I just need a yes or a no, and then this will be the last time I ask. If you get all of those other social programs that 800 million that New York City does, Los Angeles, other people do with great success, would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer.
Wow. So watch my answer, Emil, very quickly, and then you can tell me what you think about that actual cut. But we're at a 30-year low while we've had the least amount of officers we've ever had. We had 3,000 officers higher in the 90s when our rates were the highest it's ever been. So I don't know that added number of troops actually helps this cause. How hard is it for that governor to say it instead of, not to Leo's point, in my opinion, not wanting to message on what it looks like in the public sector? It looks horrible optics wise. Your thoughts, Emil?
Yeah, so let's go back to 2014 when Bill Clinton said, I put 100,000 cops on the street through the crime bill from the 1993-1994 crime bill over the 6 years between 94 and 2000. There is no evidence that those 100,000 extra officers, which actually, according to the GAO, was 88,000 officers, had any effect on crime whatsoever. In fact, crime, as you just mentioned, actually crept up during that hiring push. So what the mayor was saying from Chicago is absolutely true. But again, we're not in an environment where the truth matters. This mayor said, hey, this is what works. He even answered the question directly. No, 5,000 cops will not make it.
He never answered directly. That's the optics problem, Emil. Not once did he answer directly.
Go back to the clip where he said no. He said no. He said no, it will not. And then he tried to explain what was working, and Scarborough would not let him finish that answer because he wanted that simple. The answer was no.
I watched two different clips, brother. I watched
no, he said no. Right in the middle of that clip, he said no.
Okay.
The word no came out of his mouth.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it, Emilio. I didn't hear him say no. And
I will review the clip again, but I promise you, there was the word no coming out of his mouth.
So let's say that
a whole lot if he did get it out. Go ahead, Leo. Go ahead, Leo.
I mean, Emil, I think that you're not disagreeing. You wouldn't disagree that even if you heard a no, that this guy did not want to answer a question as to whether or not those extra troops would help decrease crime. He didn't want to answer it.
No,
And I'm asking the question, why?
Right.
Why would he not want to answer that question?
it's a loaded question, Leo. That's the problem with that question. That question is loaded because it equates crime to number of police. It reduces crime to a formula that is not working.
The question is as loaded, Emil.
Not necessarily get
Do you have an answer for the question? Do you have an answer for the question, Emil?
About what?
Do you have an answer for that question?
Will troops, in the case of DC, have those troops impacted crime in DC?
We answered this question last week.
Answer it right now.
You're gonna get a short-term decrease, and then over the next several months, you're gonna see crime increase and probably pass the level that it was before the troops were introduced. That is a reaction to the force, the necessary force. And what's so interesting about all of this is right now the National Guard is also on trash duty. They're picking up trash and doing other civic works besides actual crime patrol. It doesn't work. It's a short-term influence over a long-term problem.
I would have rather you been in that seat than that governor than that because again we're talking about propaganda.
Yes,
and he looked horrible. We have
he looked absolutely horrible. I have nothing to defend him on.
Terrible with messaging and appearing not wanting to answer the question, even though you and I think we have enough information to answer the question. What based on what's going on now,
he has enough information to answer the question.
And so I think again we have to continue to own the optics of how this looks when we know the perception of crime is what drives this, and he looked horrible in that moment. I just think it has to be owned.
I'm gonna hit a sore point. Okay.
Let's go.
I am concerned that the mayors that we see pity-patting around this issue of crime are perceiving, listen to every word I say, the mayors who are responding to this issue of crime and what can stop crime are pity-patting around this answer in a way that suggests that they think that they have a base or an audience, whether it's donors or voters or some kind of cultural idiom that says, we don't want you to talk about crime. And perhaps we even are okay with the crime in our neighborhoods. I mean, are they suggesting that they think a better solution would be to build a wall around the city, like Escape from New York, and just, you folks, leave us alone. We like our crime. We like it like this. And we don't want anybody helping us with it. As a matter of fact, yeah, you can give me $500 million for my police force, but I really need more food programs. Well, okay. So you don't want the 500 million? I mean, this is absolute nihilism, I think, that I'm wondering as a Black man whether or not Black leaders are really willing to represent my family interests if I'm in one of those cities.
So I understand your question. I'm going to be fair to the Chicago mayor. Again, yes, I'm in the 1% who does the research, but I've absolutely know, to Emil's point, that he has the information, and I've seen him speak to exactly what he's been doing to lower the crime before this issue became this issue. So I would offer that he himself, and again, I've seen this with my own eyes. They are speaking to the lowering of the crime. I think what just happened has been an unexpected onslaught. There wasn't a bunch of media coverage, but they specifically, I've seen the Baltimore mayor speak specifically to exactly what programs have lowered and not only lowered the crime, but they've increased education levels in Baltimore under this mayor.
So wait a minute, but Montoya, do you really believe that a mayor worth their salt did not expect this onslaught from Trump?
Yes, I don't know that. It's just my honest opinion. I could be. I'm cool if I'm wrong about it, but I don't know that the DC takeover prepped any mayor for now Trump's coming to my city too. I don't think mayors were prepared.
These guys don't deserve to be.
Wrong,
If these guys can't do 1 + 1 = 2 and 2 + 2 = 4, they shouldn't be mayors.
Leo, I'm gonna have to agree with you, and this is my frustration with the Democrats writ large.
Okay.
The game has been played for 4 years with 4 years of a break. You can always assume the worst of this president. He will live down to it every single time. This is not a mayor problem. This is a Democrat problem. The Democrats, and I hate to use it, but it's the Democratic Party. And I'm going to tell you, the Democratic Party writ large has failed miserably at understanding. And this is why I think sometimes it's malicious. Sometimes I do believe it's that nihilism that you're talking about, Leo, because it's too obvious for anyone who has any modicum of understanding of politics in this generation. For the last 10 years, Trump has been on message very specifically. It's boring how easy it is to predict what's going to happen based on what he said. And the fact that you do not have a defense, that you do not have messaging, that you do not have programs, that you do not have a consistent, holistic approach to combating all of the things that he's going to do, it's not just frustrating, it's damn near criminal.
And that's how you can end up letting Joe Scarborough, who's not typically actually going to attack you, looking bad on this show for the reasons that y'all just said. So, hey, I feel y'all, man. Let's go to another cut and keep this thing moving. Again, we spent, a half a show on the current issue. Emil, let me let you ask, because you asked for this show. So let me at least let you close with this before I go to the next cut. So he's not in Chicago, but he played with the governor saying, hey, you should ask for me to come. So I know, again, I know you weren't able to be on the beginning of your show, but Leo agreed that what the balloon test for what he would like to do to have troops throughout in the event that he does make a 2028 run. Leo stands by, he agrees with you, just to let you know that you wasn't on the show. So I wanted to let you know that he agrees that what you're suggesting is also at play while we individually and inside the media are having conversations about the crime. He agreed with you that the bigger play is there. So I wanted to let you make a comment about that, and then let's talk about what's happening with the Lisa Jackson lady.
So look, Governor Pritzker is drawing a strong line in the sand. I'm not asking, I'm telling. I don't need you. I don't need your troops. Why would the president say, come beg me for my help, when he has no reason to do so? There's no natural disaster. There's nothing. But this president has a history of holding hostage funds that would help the people in order to get what he wants. He's not above being a malicious actor if it benefits his agenda. So we have to see. So to see J.B. Pritzker do what he does is an amazing line in the sand, but it's not enough. Is he prepared to have federal funds withheld and go the distance without those federal funds when President Trump, true to form, will use those funds as a lever against him? Because that's what's about to happen. He's going to figure out how to squeeze until Pritzker and the state of Illinois either feel enough pain that they bend, or they stand up and say, we don't need you, get the hell out of here. But whatever the case is, the reason why I'm so adamant about this is not just because of the governor of Illinois. It's because we're seeing an unprecedented misuse of the American government. I would say an abuse of the American government. And it's going to take governors and mayors willing to stand up, and it's got to be red states too, because trust and believe, he's going to start in blue cities, he's going to start in blue states, but he's not going to end until every state in the union has a police presence that he controls. And if you don't believe me, go back to when I talked about what happened in LA and how that was the template for other cities in the country. He's going to do the same in Dallas, in Miami, and everywhere else, even in red states, even in red cities, sooner or later. Don't let him have that. If you don't draw the line in the sand, it's not going to stop.
Hey, good stuff. Let's move on to this subject here.
James Fishback is the CEO of Azoria, and he joins me now. James, you were at the Jackson Hole meeting last week. You ask Lisa Cook a direct question about mortgage fraud. She's been accused of mortgage fraud. Tell me what happened.
Good morning, Stuart. I was at the Jackson Hole conference presenting Azoria's new research model that shows that President Trump and Secretary Bessent are right. Interest rates are at least 1.7 percentage points too high. And there I see Lisa Cook walking into the lobby on Friday morning. I got my Starbucks in hand and I asked her about these mortgage fraud allegations very respectfully. Moments later, I am escorted out of the conference and I am handed a criminal trespass notice. I am told that if I come back and ask Lisa Cook any more questions, I am going to be arrested. This is perhaps the saddest analogy for the Federal Reserve in 2025. If you question them, if you push back, if you even so much as offer a different opinion, they will punish you. That is wrong and that is un-American.
You think well, there is going to be another new governor on the Federal Reserve Board. Do you have any idea who it might be? And does it force the board in the direction of cutting interest rates more quickly?
Well, let's be clear here about first what Lisa Cook is alleged to have done. A couple years ago, she got 2 mortgages on 2 homes in 2 separate states, signed these applications within 2 weeks of each other, claiming that both of these homes, Stuart, were her primary residence. That is a lie. That is fraud. It is called owner occupancy fraud. In fact, the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia quantified the risk of how this systemically poses to the housing market. Now, what this does is, by President Trump firing her, it, of course, to your point, opens up a vacancy on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. I'm hearing David Malpass. I'm also hearing that Stephen Moran, who was appointed to Kugler's seat, may actually end up going to Cook's seat. And the reason why, Stuart, is because Cook's seat runs until 2038, where Kugler's seat was set to expire this January.
Do you think the market rallies significantly when we get the first of a series of interest rate cuts?
I think the market's done just fine. I think the market is looking through Jerome Powell's obstinance and looking through the fact that Lisa Cook is a deceitful miscreant. Everyone was saying last week that if Trump fired Lisa Cook, the stock market would crash and bond yields would go up. The exact opposite has happened. It's once again a repudiation of the expert class. President Trump is holding people accountable. In fact, if he did not hold Lisa Cook accountable, that would have posed a risk for markets because they would actually question the rule of law in America, and that's something that markets do not tolerate.
James Fishback, you are a tough guy. We'll see you again real soon.
Hey, real quick, let me have Leo answer one question from one of our watchers before we move into this topic. I thought it was a good question, so I wanted to have you respond to it. One of our watchers says, why isn't Leo saying the same thing about the flooded Texas community that turned down emergency management money to spite their 27 kids? I'm not specifically familiar with that situation. Leo, you might, but I wanted to give you at least a chance to respond to one of our watchers, and then we'll move into the Lisa Cook situation.
Why isn't Leo, I'm reading it now, why isn't Leo saying the same thing about the flooded Texas community that turned down emergency management money to spite their 27 kids? I'm assuming that the listener may be speaking of the church camp event. Is that what you guys think he's referring to? I'm not sure what the reference is to, and perhaps
okay, I didn't know if you might already. It might be something you might be familiar with. Emil, any backdrop that maybe help us here? I'm not going to stress it. I was just, if it was an opportunity to respond to somebody, I wanted to. But when
in 2021, Kerr County refused money from the Biden administration because simply it was from the Biden administration and therefore evil and was blue dollars or whatever color dollars that they couldn't spend. And that same county now has dead children because they could have invested in their early warning system and maybe prevented some of those deaths. The problem remains. People are taking stands using other people's lives as pawns in a game that is deadly to those lives. Sorry, but they were wrong. And
they were wrong. And so to answer, if they were asking me that question, Emil, thank you for giving more clarification. Emil, like I said, Emil is always on top of these things.
We can do that.
So what I just heard was Biden sent him money, right? Sent them money for that. Is that right? Someone confirm that. Emil, did Biden send them money?
It was Congress under President Biden that sent
so
money.
Congress under President Biden, listener, thank you for sharing that, sends them money. I want to point out that I'm going somewhere with this. So Congress under Biden, they're in control. They send them money. He says, I don't want it because I'm hyper partisan and I don't want money from Joe Biden. 27 kids die. did Biden then take the Justice Department and say, I'm putting that person in jail?
Well,
Nope.
I mean, the flood happened under President Trump.
What happened under Trump?
The money was allocated in 2021. The flood happened in
under
2025.
Biden.
Right.
Okay.
So there's 4 years between and a change of administration.
So now we're under Trump.
Biden could not have prosecuted those people.
Right. So the Attorney General of that state, Texas, right, is probably not their Trump allegiance, right? So they're not going to go. The Attorney General is not going to investigate that guy. That's what we're saying. So in other words, what the listener is asking is, would my cries about that make a difference? Not if Abbott, who is the governor of Texas, and his attorney general, they're not going to do something that would be against the current zeitgeist of the Republican base under the authoritarian rule of Donald Trump. Okay, so to expect them to do something against Donald Trump is asking them to commit suicide and have conviction and courage. Now, I have said many times that current Republican leadership is operating without a rudder, without courage, without conviction. They're operating under the authoritarian power, under fear from Donald Trump. So, yeah, I mean, that's horrible what happened there. It's wrong. There are also all kinds of other things that were wrong. And there have been many opportunities where Democrats, when they had the control, as a matter of fact, Democrats put Donald Trump in jail. So there are opportunities that people have used to try and create the rule of law. Donald Trump is creating the rule of law to his advantage, to his mindset, because he won an election. And once again, and you heard us say this all the time on this show, elections matter. And we've got to make sure, you've got to make sure, I've got to make sure that if I don't like how this election turned out, because I don't want this kind of rule, then I've got to make sure that I and my neighbors, my children, and even if I can, no, I'm not going to say this, I don't want my dog to vote. But the point is that anybody I can get the vote, I better work harder next time to make sure this didn't happen. This doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Democrats did use lawfare to try and stop Trump from winning, but it didn't work.
Yeah, you've been consistent in that. All right, so moving into the Lisa Cook situation, I also wanted to, I know it was a little break, so hopefully y'all can kind of recall what you saw. But you saw them just kind of highlighting, hey, from that perspective, this is a good thing, and that not holding her accountable was going to be a risk at rule of law, right? And the crazy part to me is whoever you listen to, they're both highlighting that there's an issue with rule of law. Like that's how it's being couched, no matter which side you're listening to. And so I do want us to read through the propaganda, because that's what we do here. And I wanted to share with y'all, in addition to that video, what Shelley had to say about the Lisa Cook. It's just something that he put on his page. And I'm going to say before I read it, I'm in complete agreement with this, because I'm not surprised at the Lisa Cook thing. I'm not surprised that it's been pushed as a racial thing, but in this situation, I agree with Shelley that it is not. But I'll read his words to y'all, and Leo, I'll let you respond first. Shelley says, here's my thing on Lisa Cook and Federal Reserve. Signing 2 docs purporting that 2 homes are primary homes it's fraud, period. Now go after the millions of people who do it. What is also true, what is also true, if a national home builder company owner named to head up Freddie and Fannie is the one who is leveling the accusation, and he and his company benefit the most from lower interest rates issued by the Fed, and needs her out to bring in another lower the rate vote, that is just as fraudulent. We as Repubs need to be careful. We are playing with fire. If you are against a quasi-private economic org running our economy, get rid of the Fed. Dems have been forcing out Fed Reserve members for years, all white dudes. Now it's racist to do the same to the sister. Please. You know what equal treatment is? Being treated equally when politics are involved. Can't cheer first black this, first black that, then scream racism when the first are treated like all the rest have been treated. Your thoughts, Leo?
No, I agree with that statement. I mean, this is clearly not one of those situations where I think saying that they're doing it because she's black really matters. I guarantee you that just like nobody comes and tells me that they want to stop my power to vote because I'm black, because they know that when they know that I'm a black Republican and I might be voting Republican. So I've never seen anyone make an attempt to stop me from voting. They might stop someone in a Democrat district. I live in a Republican district. They might stop somebody in a Democrat district. They might. Why? Because they're Democrats. And so in this case, she was voting in a way that Trump didn't like. Have I ever consulted for a politician that asked me to look for a way to remove somebody from a board so some kind of business deal can happen? Yes, I have. They didn't say, go find the black people. They said, go find the person who's voting against my interests. Okay, that's all that's happening here. And I agree also, yeah, this thing, there are a lot of people who are probably like going, oh my gosh, I'm on school board, or I'm on this, I better go. I mean, there are a lot of people who do what they did. You could buy an investment property, you know that you get a better interest rate and insurance and everything else if you say I live in it. Oh boy, a lot of people are going back and changing some things on there. They might take a few extra points.
So, Emil, your thoughts, and again, that's what we're here for, right? Don't listen to the propaganda. So let's not turn this situation into a racism situation when the reality is what I feel like Shelley and Leo are saying. But give me your thoughts as well. That's how I feel about it. But of course, give us your thoughts.
I'm gonna, the optics are what they are. She's a black woman being attacked by the administration. That's not uncommon. I mean, we've seen that in the Library of Congress and other positions that obviously favor him if he puts in his person. The problem is, I don't think she did what she did, nor do I think that the accusation is legitimate. The problem is you have a lawless administration trying to create and bend rules of law to its favor. It will do whatever it takes and use whatever resource it has available to it to get what it wants out of the Fed. Right now, the Fed is damn near untouchable. The Supreme Court just mentioned this year that the First and Second Bank of America is a tradition that cannot be easily swayed by the administration. So he's got to figure out if he can really fire her. So he'll say the words, "You're fired." But those words do not necessarily mean a legal action that removes Lisa Cook from her position in the Fed. We'll see if Jerome Powell has a backbone or not. The Fed is a quasi-private institution. It is both public and private. It is designed to be to dampen the effect of politics. That's the way it was designed. So unless there is an actual investigation, that investigation has been vetted by all of the proper resources, including those within the Fed, and that investigation has proven that Governor Cook has actually done something wrong or has enough evidence to substantiate that she did something wrong, she should not be fired. What you have is a partisan hack who works inside the administration, who has no business being where he is, but for his allegiance to Donald Trump, saying, I investigated and he found these facts. Yeah. We don't know if those facts have been doctored. We don't know if they've been invented. We don't know if they're even real because we have no data to support it. And that
I would add to you, Emil, I would highlight what Emil is saying, Montoya, excuse me.
Go ahead.
She had a hearing, when she was appointed governor.
Oh, okay, yeah, for sure.
And as a matter of fact, I remember the Vice President Harris coming in to break the tie on the vote to through her hearing. In other words, if Republicans thought that she was doing illegal things that made her unqualified. Now, I personally have read her background and resume. I wouldn't have appointed her, but that's not because she's black. That's because I thought she was way too liberal. That's my reason. I mean, but she was appointed. She did go through the rigor. If they wanted to bring up something that they thought they should have done it then, and I can't look, we've seen James Comey go through the ringer, right? We've seen black candidates, it doesn't matter, Hispanic, white, James Comey. This happens during those sessions. So yes, I do believe this is, surprise, surprise, part of Trump saying, I'm going to get my way. And there's another kind of law. He actually said that one time. There is the law, but then there's another kind of law. He said that.
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
Yeah,
so again, pay attention, people. This thing, there's a suspension of order. There's a suspension of decency. You're just going to have to like recognize that for now. Now, it doesn't mean to lay down and let it happen. Call it out, write it down. But I want everybody to remember between 2021 and 2024, Democrats were vicious. Some of the things they said about Trump were not true. That's true. I mean, even liberals will say that today. Yeah, we made some accusations about Trump. The media joined in. We created lawfare. Did you put him in jail for the right reasons? You got a mugshot. Everybody was cheering. They got a mugshot. You think that if you put a man with that kind of ego and pride, I don't care who he is, in prison and take mugshots on him, he ain't going to want revenge? This is revenge, people.
Look, the revenge tour. They call the second president the revenge tour. Go ahead, Emil.
No, he's a petty mofo. He's really something that.
But Emil, I don't know. Wait a minute. It ain't petty when somebody puts you in jail. That's not pettiness to punch back.
What's petty is the fact that he has never shown any spine except for what is in his own personal favor. I'm not saying that it's not petty.
I'm with Leo in this, in the sense that petty is not the word I would use like that. Yeah, I'm just saying petty is not the word when it's a natural response. A natural response to you go this far.
What I'm saying is,
and we would like the presidency to have the decency to be above this approach. But Leo's point is, a man with that ego is foolish to even call it anything other than what
he's been petty from day one.
Petty ain't the word.
Names before they have before he has a reason to call them name. He starts shit.
I got you. But I don't want to fight over the word petty though. I don't want to fight over the word.
Let's get the word.
Leo, his ego is all up in this, and that this is all about him getting his way no matter what.
Let's expand this a little bit, because I think that you'll find this useful, because I know that you believe that we should figure out a way to make sure we secure the republic, right?
Yes.
We know part of the fall of Rome was because I think his name was Secaucus, right? He actually had one of the senators thrown out so that his vote would happen and he could get his way. That's the kind of thing Trump would do, right? Okay. And what happened was, after that moment, all kinds of Roman leadership started to do the exact same thing, and they lost the republic to an empire. We've had 250 years of trying to establish a democratic republic and running a democratic republic. We've had presidential assassinations. We've had, attempted assassinations. Right. We've had, even from the beginning, Lincoln and Douglas, that we celebrate their debate series today. And, we've had watermelons thrown at Lincoln and hit him in the back of the head. I mean, we've had some ugly moments in American history, but we've kept our democratic republic. But like that Roman moment, when somebody says, you know what, I'm going to use lawfare. When someone takes a punch, you can say it started with Biden and put him in jail. You can say it was something else. I don't care. The fact is that we have now established a new rule of order, that it is acceptable and expected that for the next 12 years, we're going to have Democrats pull stuff that probably is not prudent when it comes to keeping the republic. We're going to have Republicans pull stuff that's probably not prudent when it comes to keeping the republic. That is something that we now have to deal with. I don't know how we're going to deal with that.
I love you saying that, Leo. And the reason I love you saying it is because we keep looking to the politicians who are only going to play this way. And now, as a people, to a degree, we've gotten on the board, and now the terminology is fight fire with fire. And that's turning into things that move us from keeping the republic. That is the risk. Go ahead, Emil.
Montoya, it's hard not to, though, when you are trying to play by the rules, allegedly. I won't say that they always do, but the Senate has been probably the most hampered by rule breaking. For instance, we had a chance under Barack Obama to have a Supreme Court justice nominated under the normal rules. The Biden rule was no rule. It was a suggestion. I went back and read the tapes, yet it became the law of the land until Mitch McConnell decided to put two justices in office like that in the same space that Merrick Garland should have been appointed when he was appointed, or at least appointed, but not installed as a Supreme Court justice. My point is that when you see a blatant change like that, oh, you cannot have a Supreme Court justice appointed within the last year of a president's term, and then flip that to, I'm going to do 2 because emergency. That's a problem. And when you see something so blatant, you're going to either have to accept that one side will manipulate, change, and break the rules however it sees fit, or you do the same thing to counter that. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right.
I just want to say this. I want to say this. I'm not actually competing with you. I was actually just pointing out that's where we're at. But the thing is, that was a wake up call for us and those watching for becoming more diligent and not relying on what the politicians are doing. What roles can we play? I don't have the answer to that yet, but it was basically a highlight of that reality. Right. And I was also highlighting that when we're watching the politicians say, fight fire with fire, and when we, the people, are just roaring that on, we're falling into the loss of our republic. I'm just announcing that out loud in a similar way, extending to what Leo said. Like, we need to at least be aware that even applauding, oh, well, it's hard not to, or fight fire with fire. I'm just saying we must become aware of where we're playing a part in that. That's all I'm highlighting. Like, because if you just do it without being aware of it, you will lose the whole republic. And if you had a chance to be aware of it, I'm just making us aware based on what Leo pointed out. Beautiful historical context. I think our watchers, if we're going to be politically conscious, we're just, in this situation, bringing some awareness. I don't know if any of us have the answer at the moment, but to do it without awareness is that's how we easily fall into that.
I agree, and let me pull back one thing, and then I want to use history as a guide.
Oh, yeah, I want to get into more cuts. Just keep that in mind.
Okay, no problem. Real quick, in 1974, President Nixon resigned. He was caught red-handed with the Watergate scandal. We all know what that was, but if we are not clear, it was Republicans and Democrats who were putting pressure on the president to say, hey, yo, you broke the law, you need to go. We're not in an environment where the president can feel pressure from his own party, even when he blatantly breaks the law. That means it's up to the people to say something to their representatives, their senators. Everybody has to say, you do not get a pass just because the guy breaking the law is on your side. You break the law, we're holding you accountable. I will install another Republican to replace you if you do not honor the law. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to the Democrats, but it does mean we've got to start holding these people accountable, because we're going to be the backstop to the constitutional republic now, because our politicians have decided that they have sold out.
And that's all. So we're all three, in a sense, saying the same thing now. Let me at least do one more cut so I can get y'all back out of here, man. But thank you. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
You were a federal prosecutor in the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice during the Bush and Obama administrations. Mm-hmm. What I wanted to ask you is, we hear people say things like Donald Trump is taking us back. He's, all these executive orders have, repealed these rights, and he's taking us back to this time. People will come up here and ask, like, what year we think we living in? I'm like, we're in 2025. But I want to ask you, simply, to the people that are listening, what rights are being stripped away from us right now?
Number one, voting.
Okay.
Voting, it's almost like you think about your health. Mm-hmm. If your health fails, nothing else matters. Mm-hmm. If voting goes away, almost nothing else you want to argue about is important enough to counteract that. Because if you don't have a say, then you cannot speak later in a way that's actually going to fall on the right ears. And voting does that. And so the rolling back of rights, when I was in the Civil Rights Division, the voting section, we still had Section 5, which is the formula you use to determine whether in an area of the country that traditionally violated civil rights laws or had skewed voting rights and laws that impacted Black people, period. There's a formula you'd use to figure out whether that person, that jurisdiction, was qualified to have to ask for permission for any change they wanted to make. When I was there, that was still there. That's gone. The formula's gone because the Supreme Court said it's outdated. We're in this sort of a post-racial world. We've had a Black president now. So The same rules won't apply. So therefore, Congress, think of a new formula. And while you take your sweet time, everything goes astray. Well, that was the entryway point of why everything else is starting to fail in terms of Section 2, which is the race-based and gerrymandering aspects of it. So that's the number one thing that people are rolling back.
Voting.
The voting. Number two, don't sleep on the Fourth Amendment reasonable search and seizures and stops. Anytime you hear about a police brutality case of a driver or someone in their home or wherever it is, you're talking about the Fourth Amendment, what right the officer has to stop you, question you, touch you, arrest you, all those things. The more power you give officers without having to substantiate that power based on probable cause or the Constitution, the more you live in a place where that goes away. So, for example, with the National Guard or the FBI that's present in Washington, D.C., where I am, the question is not just whether they're supposed to be there because it's an emergency, quote unquote, but whether they're going to abide by the same principles under the Fourth Amendment. The standard right now is it's only unreasonable if a reasonable officer would feel it's unreasonable. Not whether you think it's reasonable, not whether you or you or you, whether a reasonable officer would think so, which incentivizes people to say, well, I'm not going to call out my fellow officer because it could come back to haunt me. So I'm going to have sort of it's reasonable, kick him in the head. I mean, I can see why that could happen. Shot him accidentally. Oh, well, I can see why that would happen. And they become the reasonable standard. So that's what the cops know. There's already that issue. Now you add the National Guard, you add in the FBI, who they don't do average traffic stops.
Yeah, they're not even equipped to do that kind of work.
And they're not, but also not necessarily used to adhering to the same standards because the nature of their work is so much more of an emergency that they have to be a little bit more aggressive at times, they say. So now trying to balance all that out means that the more accepted it becomes that law enforcement has power, the less you have to say, wait, I have my rights. You can't do that to me. More it becomes laughed at. So I think those are the two areas to me that are the most problematic. There are others.
Voting in the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah.
Leo, I'll start with you. Obviously, they brought Laura Coates there to give a legal perspective on what she sees. I felt pretty reasonable in what she said, but I just wanted to hear both of your thoughts. And as an American people, what do you think she's right about for us as the people? Forget your political party in this moment, if you can.
Well, let me just say, gerrymandering has been a problem for a long time, where through redrawing of maps, politicians have the power to pick their voters rather than the voters picking their politician. So when she says you're going to lose your right to vote, she's right, but that's not a new thing with Trump. So that's been a problem for many years, and Democrats and Republicans both have gerrymandered in a way that take away your vote. Okay, so now have we now gotten to a heightened fight? That's so egregious that maybe people will get together and say, hey, we need to do something about this. Maybe we'll have something happen like happened in California, where they created a citizens tribunal to deal with these things. Maybe we'll do this nationally because we see how this is going to, because Democrats are going to win office again. And then Democrats will be able to do the same stuff that Trump and Abbott in Texas and everybody is doing. Now, the California governor, he's actually swinging an axe back, and he's doing it against what his California voter base thinks. So they're saying, we give you the right to take away Gavin Newsom. We give you the right to take away our votes. So she's not talking about anything new there. On Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act, pre-clearance, yes, you notice how she said, and this is really important because this is, again, about us being awake, okay? She said that they took it away saying that the formula was outdated. What she did not add were that there were states that were actually violating voting rights that were not covered, like Massachusetts, for example, under pre-clearance. And they were more egregious in violating Black people's voting rights than some cities in the South and towns and states in the South that had to go through pre-clearance. And some of those towns were 100% Black. Some of those districts, like Clayton County, 100% black in their control, but they have to go through pre-clearance when Lowell, Massachusetts didn't have to. So the formula was wrong. And she mentioned the formula needed it, and then they took their time to do it. So, okay. So the problem isn't the reexamination of Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. It's the fact that we were lazy and ineffective in creating a new formula. So I've been warning civil rights leaders for years. Stop being so freaking lazy. Stop driving your Lambos and your Maybachs and do some work.
Hey, Bill?
So she called it what it is to me, and that is an assault on voting rights. And it's like, it's frustrating because if you hear Republicans say, well, the word black or the word, the N-bomb wasn't used, therefore it's not racism. If you can create policy that affects a large group of people, it's a racist policy. And that's what they're doing. Just because they're not using the word black or they're not saying it with the explicit language doesn't mean it's not harming a very specific group of people. Is someone like Leo affected? No, because Leo's a highly educated person in a place where he's sort of insulated from this. But there's a mass of people who are going to be affected by this.
I'm going to interrupt you, Emil, because I want to understand something.
Yeah.
So where you're going, I don't know if I understood her to be saying that. She may have been, but I'm trying to understand because I felt, again, it helped me understand. This is why I have two experts here. So when I'm listening to Laura Coates speak, I, to a degree, thought she was just kind of saying, hey, here's the risk for you as the voter. Like that's just to a degree. But now when I hear Leo kind of say, hey, there was a way to handle it, our politicians were just lazy. That's what I kind of hear him say.
Yeah.
So you say that there's something racist. So I don't equate what you're saying to what I heard her say. I'm trying to understand where I'm just lost.
For sure. What I'm getting at is if you look at the Voting Rights Act and how it was dismantled by the Supreme Court and then not repaired by Congress, the people most affected by that were Black people. That's where I'm getting at, is that those provisions that were stripped out of the Voting Rights Act were specifically put to protect Black people, and when they
I can hear that. So let me my question just for understanding.
Sure.
That was at risk. For example, if Leo's right about, hey, do the work to get the formula correct or whatever that means. I'm just saying, and I'm saying, isn't that something that should just be done to protect all Americans' rights to vote? Like I'm just saying, the issue that I think she's saying is all of our rights are being at risk. At least that's how I heard her. So, I understand that you're pointing out that Blacks were hurt the most, but I'm saying, the reason I'm being real particular here is I don't know if we should even focus it in a racial situation if what's being taken away. The question that Charlamagne asked is, what rights are we losing as a people? Right. So what I'm saying is she saying that there's a risk of that we as the people are losing some of our rights as a people? That's what I hear her saying. I think you're saying Blacks were hurt the most. But
what I'm saying is when he says we, I don't necessarily agree that it is all American citizens. I'm looking at him. I'm asking, not about. I'm not agreeing. I'm asking. The we that I hear him using is Black people, but I'm also saying it this way: if all Americans were treated equally, there would be no need for a Voting Rights Act, period. But we know that's not true historically. So if there's not an equal voter under the law, which is why the Voting Rights Act even existed, then when we start attacking the Voting Rights Act, who's being protected by the Voting Rights Act must also be in question, which is why we are here. We're not simply seeing voting, but again, you look at the people who are not affected by the Voting Rights Act, they're not having their right to vote being as easily manipulated. I'm not saying they're not under attack, but their votes are not as easily attacked or manipulated, their right to vote as easily attacked or manipulated as those for whom the Voting Rights Act was enacted. The Voting Rights Act was enacted not because all Americans needed a Voting Rights Act, although it applies to all Americans. It was specifically because Black people's right to vote was being attacked. So if you attack the Voting Rights Act, you're attacking the protection for those voters for whom the Voting Rights Act was enacted. This is the problem, that we're conflating two things. I don't conflate them. I always look at Black first, because if it's good for Black people, it's almost always good for all people. But the other way doesn't always comport. So now we have to have this conversation. And the conversation that I heard Laura Coates mentioning was, yes, all Americans' rights are attacked. But when you specifically call out Section 21 of the Voting Rights Act as being stripped out, that's us, Black people in America, feeling the pinch of someone attacking our right to vote.
Gotcha. All right, I respect it. I'll just, in my, if we're kind of saying, hey, things are being played different, here's the bigger play of this administration, and in my opinion, if the push is we as the people have to kind of understand our diligence, be conscious of where we should act, and maybe I'm wrong, but the gerrymandering seems to be an issue regardless of, and I'm not trying to take race out of it. That's not my goal here, but it feels like the bigger attack is on us, we the people. So I feel like that's an area to actually come together and say, hey, let's be aware of actually what's being done, because this is how it hurts all of us. And this is not me, again, this is not me kumbaya-ing. It just seems to be, unless I'm wrong about that this work not getting done that Leo mentioned isn't going to be detrimental to all. Am I wrong?
Let me just say this.
No,
So
you're not wrong.
Because I hear you guys, I mean, I hear it clearly. And I like the assumption that the brother Charlemagne the God and Laura Coates' answer was transcendent of just Black people. And here's why. If something only matters to a 15% of the population, and that population 93% of the time votes the same way, why should I give a damn about what that 15% has to say?
Exactly.
So if this law or any policy only affects the small number of people who don't even vote for my party, then I don't care how it impacts them if it only impacts them. So I think what I hope, and I think, so Montoya's assessment is the same as mine. I was hopeful that Charlemagne the God was saying this affects all Americans. And I would argue, I would know that we would need to make an argument. If we're going to do something about what we consider an injustice on Voting Rights Act, we have to make an argument how it impacts all of us. That search and seizure. See, I can make, as a political strategist, I can find millions of white Americans who would say, I don't like search and seizure. As a matter of fact, how do I know I can do that? Because I did exactly that when I was part of the campaign to stop the city of Atlanta police from doing search and seizure. They were doing it in Black communities, mostly on Black residents. But the white people in Cobb and Alpharetta, we became alerted of it. And I'm part of those white folks. I'm living in their community. I'm going to the pancake breakfast with them. And we worked against it because we saw, wait a minute, that starts happening to us. So what Black people who are so concerned about Blackness have to do sometimes is figure out how to make other people see how this can be impacting you too.
And that's what I feel like this moment is, because it's a way to leverage. So sometimes that political consciousness, even, let's be strategic enough to be aware of versus sometimes just being focused. Because again, I love us too much to not be, I'm never afraid to focus on just us. But I think the bigger picture here is being very aware, because now, hopefully in the future, when it comes to this specific issue, we push back against who we've already said the politicians are being led by their donors. But if we, the people, say, hey, let's get rid of this altogether, and we're calling them that now, that's via party, via race. You don't have to put it in either one of those things because we're not getting our votes heard. So that's, I love being able to leverage what I think is really happening to us towards this issue. Go ahead, Leo.
Montoya, I want to back up something I said.
Okay.
I can share emails from me back during the time of pre-clearance being attacked. I can share personal emails, and I'm not going to talk about certain people because they're now dead. I sent direct emails to black congressmen saying we need to get a formula in front of them ASAP.
Wow.
No response. Bernice King will tell you that.
And Leo, you're calling out something that I wish more of us could say louder and have our voices heard. Your job is to represent the people. If the Supreme Court struck down that provision, you need to rewrite that provision post haste. Do you know the Voting Rights Act in 2000 and 2000, whenever it was renewed in 2004, I think it was under President George W. Bush.
That's right.
Was
Republican president
was renewed basically in 98 to 0. 98 to 0 in the Senate. That was like nobody even thought twice about the Voting Rights Act in 2004. 20 years later, we don't even agree that the Voting Rights Act is needed. What happened in those 20 years where it went from 98 to 0 in the Senate to now we are not sure we want to even keep it. Whatever those, and there's a bunch of analyses that you can find online to talk about that. But the bottom line is what Leo's talking about. You've got to be responsive to that particular demand. And that demand is when you see the Supreme Court strike something down, you got to be right up front and say, this is what must happen to replace it. When that didn't happen, the door opened far wider than it ever had. There are forces in America right now, today, that have been persistent since 1865.
And so let me say this and play one last
they're not going away.
Here. I'm going to say this. Sorry to cut you off. So I'm going to say this. So what you will continue to hear if you're watching this show is why your vote actually matters. There has to be an accountability to when Leo says, I call this congressman and they don't do the work, and we become aware of that. We have to vote out some of our own and put in someone new who has the fire and desire to do what we need. I'm not saying that's simple, but to not care and leave it at their feet. That's how we got here in 20 years, to your point. Let me play this last cut. Let me play this last cut and give y'all both last responses to this. I just thought this was a smart cut to play, not even reference to anything we've already talked about.
No one can be properly loyal to a country who isn't prepared to abandon a political party.
Could you repeat that for us, please?
I said no one can be properly loyal to a country without being prepared to abandon a political party. The party is not the agency of governmental representation. It is merely an informal association for those who are in the struggle for power, the contest for power. It does not command primary loyalty and should not command primary loyalty, because to do so means to betray one's fundamental commitments to one's country.
That is Zanetti. I forgot his last. Dave Zanetti. I don't know. He's the CEO of a company. Thought it was a very interesting thought. Emil and Leo, you know how much I push for independence, so I love the thought. But Emil, I'll give you a last thought. Leo, give you a last thought, and we out of here. But thank y'all for y'all time today.
Professor Allen was 100% correct that a party does not represent the nation. And when we conflate the two, we run the danger of allowing a party to dictate what the nation is and how it operates and acts. More importantly, how it treats the least of us. I'm always looking at the measure of success for America as how rich are our poorest people. And it takes no party to ask and answer that question. So if we are going to be a nation of law, a nation that is good to its own citizens, we have to stop thinking that the Republicans are going to be better or the Democrats are going to be better. It's going to be, how is that poorest person truly treated by its own nation, its own government? And if the answer is poorly, then everybody got to go.
Leo, your thoughts, brother, and we out of here. Thank you for your time. Good show today.
Some performative faker said that the Target boycott was the most important civil rights movement since the Montgomery bus boycott. For someone who is positioning themselves as a leader, and I'm talking about the guy over at New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, making such a ridiculous statement. If people who claim to represent you are playing with you
In your face.
in your face, saying nonsense and expecting you to support them, you need to fire them. And then when people like that actually rise up and take office, and they're playing with you to the point where they actually do dumb things like this. Let me tell you why. When people like me were sending an alarm, ringing the fire bell, hey, let's get that formula up real quick. The reason they didn't do it, the whisper campaign was, this is going to kill the Republicans. The Republicans are stripping away voting rights. We can use this to campaign against the Republicans. They intentionally allowed our votes to suffer, our rights to suffer, thinking this gives them a tool.
A political tool.
It's like, you hear on one side, the tears of a white woman availeth much. And sometimes they're hoping that we see white women crying so they can go get white people all riled up. At the same time, there are Democrats who love the tears of black people. And you better watch that. You better hold your black representatives, your white representatives, your Asian representatives who are Democrats. Say, don't play with me, don't play with me, don't play with me.
Hey, and I'll leave with one of my quotes as a philosopher. I'm a mental activist, but I consider myself a philosopher at heart. Perpetual struggle is a hustle. Hear me, people. Perpetual struggle is a hustle. All right, y'all. If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. Thank you both for a great show. Anybody out there, make sure y'all are sharing and letting people know what we're doing on Politically Conscious. We're just trying to raise your awareness, not telling you how to think, how to vote, but trying to tell you what's important and what to pay attention to, because there's a lot coming at you in the media. So hopefully we help you weed through it and just have better thoughts about what's actual factual versus narratives that are being given to you by both parties, talking points that are not based on facts. We try to read through them. We're not going to always get it right, but we do make an honest effort to give you true and honest thoughts about politics. So hope y'all tell people about us, share the show. See y'all next time. You're going to see us subscribe. Also hit the notification bell. That's how you will get, because we pop up at different times. So you got to hit that notification bell because we don't come on consistently the same day of the week. So you do need to hit the notification bell as well. Thank y'all. Y'all both stay on real quick. I just want to thank y'all. I'm about to end the stream and I'll see y'all in a second.